When the House adjourned earlier in the day, according to the record, the following members were in the list, in the order that I'm going to read their names, to contribute. The Honorable Hulu for order, the Honorable Ali Athman, the Honorable Albere Malimo, the Honorable Odanga Makoha, the Honorable Kihara Kimani, the Honorable Mwamkale Kamoti, the Honorable Luyai Amisi, the Honorable Ishongwa Kimani, and the Honorable Robbie Nyamabe. And because those members were in the House to contribute to this debate, I will follow that order. So the first member to contribute is the Honorable Hulu for order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to the speech made by His Excellency yesterday in accordance with the Article 132 of our Constitution. I would like to thank His Excellency for honoring his constitutional obligation of addressing a special sitting of a joint sitting of the two houses of Parliament. Mr. Speaker, His Excellency is required to provide progress on achievement of Article 10, the principles highlighted under our Article 10 in our Constitution, as well as also updating us on international obligation. The speech of His Excellency mainly centered on economic progress. He was able to compare what he had achieved over the 8 years that he has been in our president, and compared that with what the previous governments, including the colonial governments, Kenyatta I government, Mzee Moi government, and also President Kibaki's government, in terms of infrastructure development. He indicated that in 8 years, he was able to do almost equal kilometers of tarmac road. That was done cumulatively by the four administrations which preceded him. Mr. Speaker, we appreciate that parts of this country which had never seen tarmac road have managed actually to receive some kilometers. In our own case, at the county headquarters, which is Yolo Town, we were able to benefit from several kilometers of tarmac and Kenya Urban Roads Authority. But if we look at equity, in terms of how this infrastructure is distributed across the country, you realize that the rural parts of the Asal part and also in Asal counties, the rural parts are disadvantaged. Most of this development is happening either in high potential areas or in the case of Asal, around the urban areas. For instance, in my own constituency, an entire sub-county called Merti sub-county has no inch of tarmac road. And therefore, when you look at this progress against values like equity, you realize that there are things that needs to be corrected. In terms of energy, we have had so many households being connected to electricity in the Asal, including my own constituency. I'm happy also to report that in most of these areas, we are using green energy. Actually, 70% of our energy as a country is generated from green sources, which is a good thing. One thing which I expected His Excellency to focus, which I didn't hear him mentioning, was the state of security, or in our case, actually insecurity. Mr. Speaker, we have several incidences of extrajudicial killings. We have incidences of people disappearing, particularly from the coast and also most of our northern counties. And these disappearances actually includes members of disciplined forces. In my own constituency, we have, for instance, in the last 2 years, including even this year, some members of disciplined forces, people who are serving in police service, disappearing without trace, and so on and so forth. We also have ethnic conflicts which have not been managed well. If, for example, if you look at Marsabit, it's something which is not supposed to happen in a country which has a functional government. If you look at Samburu, for example, Samburu North especially, we have issues of insecurity. Laikipia, the same. And also, in my own case, in Merti sub-county, we have serious problems. I also expected His Excellency to give a lot of update us on what the government has done in terms of drought response, because at the moment, drought is the most important issue that is affecting us. The 1.5 billion which he indicated was set aside for livestock offset. Mr. Speaker, we have not seen it in many of our constituencies, and as a result of that, we have lost almost 50% of our livestock, particularly cattle and sheep and so on and so forth. So some of the things that His Excellency has mentioned are things which have not been implemented, probably as a result of laxity in terms of people he has assigned in the cabinet positions and also in the levels of PS and so on and so forth.
In the order that I read out, the next is the Honorable Ali Adman.
Asante Mheshimiwa Spika. Mheshimiwa Spika, ningependa kuchukua fursa hii kuungana na wenzangu kumshukuru nchi hapo jana kupitia kwa bunge hili. Mheshimiwa Spika, ni dhahiri shahiri yaonyesha ya kwamba yale mengi ambayo yalizungumzwa na Mheshimiwa Rais ni mambo ambayo yameweza kuonekana na Wakenya. Moja kubwa Mheshimiwa Rais ambalo limeweza kushuhudiwa na Wakenya, nikikumbuka vyema bunge lililopita, kwenye shughuli kama hizi bunge hili linakuwa na taharuki kubwa sana, linakuwa na bugdha nyingi sana kutokana na kwamba ya zile hali za kisiasa Mheshimiwa Spika. Lakini ukweli ni kwamba jana kumeshuhudiwa pakubwa ule utulivu ambao uliopatikana kwa ushirikiano mwema unaoonekana baina ya Mheshimiwa Rais Uhuru Kenyatta na wapinzani wake Mheshimiwa Spika. Lakini Mheshimiwa Spika, ningependa tu kumwambia Mheshimiwa Rais ya kwamba katika kutembea na haya ya uongozi afahamu kwamba hakuna na mambo ya kisiasa. Unapotengeneza hili basi usijaribu kutaka kuharibu lingine. Naamini pakubwa haya yameweza kupatikana kupitikia kwa ushirikiano wake mwema baina yeye na naibu wake Mheshimiwa William Ruto. Mheshimiwa Spika. Mheshimiwa Spika, ukweli ni kwamba yamedhihirika wazi na yanaonekana swala zima masala ya miundo msingi, masala ya mabarabara na kadhalika. Tunashuhudia barabara zinazojengwa hapa Nairobi, barabara zinazojengwa Mombasa, maeneo ya Kipevu na maeneo ya Changamwe kuelekea airport. Mheshimiwa Spika, yote haya ni juhudi za Mheshimiwa Rais akisaidiana na Mheshimiwa naibu wa Rais katika serikali hii ambao inaongozwa na hawa wawili. Mheshimiwa Spika, lakini Mheshimiwa Spika, ukweli ni kwamba hali halisi juu ya mengi ambayo yameweza kuzungumzwa na Mheshimiwa Rais ni kwamba yameweza kuonekana na Wakenya, lakini bado tuko na changamoto za hapa na pale. Mheshimiwa Rais, Mheshimiwa Spika, nikizungumzia katika eneo bunge langu la Lamu Mashariki ama kaunti ya Lamu, Mheshimiwa Spika, ni kwamba tunamshukuru Mheshimiwa Rais kwa juhudi zake. Kuna barabara ambazo zimeweza kujengwa kutoka Gariseni hadi Mokoe. Kuna masala ambao ameweza kuyatilia mkazo, masala ya Lapset Lamu. Lakini Mheshimiwa Spika, kuna umuhimu mkubwa katika hali hizi Mheshimiwa Rais kuweza kuzingatia na kuwa karibu na washauri wenye ambao watapeana ushauri mwafaka wa kuweza kulimaliza lile jambo ambalo ameweza kulifanya kwa njia mzuri. Mheshimiwa Spika, kama ningependa kumwambia Mheshimiwa Uhuru Kenyatta, kama eneo bunge la Lamu Mashariki, mbali ya kwamba tunaona miradi mingi inayofanyika ya masala ya barabara, lakini utapata eneo bunge langu Mheshimiwa Spika, hakuna hata kilomita moja ya barabara ya lami Mheshimiwa Spika, na hili nimeweza kuleta mara kadhaa katika bunge hili na kuliwakilisha katika wahusika wakuu katika jambo hili Mheshimiwa Spika. Vile vile nataka niseme ya kwamba tukiwa kama viongozi kutoka Lamu tumeshuhudia ujenzi wa LAPSSET. Ni matarajio makubwa kupitia kwa serikali hii na Mheshimiwa Rais ya kwamba yale malengo ya ujenzi wa poti ile ni kwamba vijana wetu kutoka Lamu wamepewa nafasi nzuri ama wamepewa kipaumbele katika kuweza kusaidika katika nafasi zile ambazo zitapatikana mahali kama pale Mheshimiwa Spika. Haya ndio mambo ambayo yatakuwa na mwongozo mwema katika serikali hii ambayo tuko nayo Mheshimiwa Spika. Tatizo kubwa Mheshimiwa Spika ambalo lipo ni kule kwamba katika yote haya yanafanyika kwa njia ya kisawasawa, lakini kuna mahali ambao wanataka tuzingatie ni kwamba pesa zinazotumika katika miradi mingi hii tumeshuhudia kwamba ni pesa za madeni za mikopo zinazochukuliwa kwa mataifa ya nje. Kuna umuhimu wa serikali kuhakikisha ya kwamba tumeweza kudhibiti madeni haya kwa sababu ya siku zijazo Mheshimiwa Spika. Vile vile nataka niseme ya kwamba Mheshimiwa Spika, kutokana na haya ni muhimu serikali iwe na mikakati muafaka katika kupambana na haya. Kwa mfano Mheshimiwa Spika, Mheshimiwa Rais alizungumza swala la ukame. Tunajua kwamba kuna ukame katika sehemu nyingi katika nchi hii na ukame huu unapatikana.
Honorable Albert Malimu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for equally giving me this opportunity to add my voice into the President's State of the Nation address. Mr. Speaker, having listened keenly to the speech of the President of the Republic of Kenya, I indeed noted that the President was very confident in his speech, very eloquent, relaxed, and he really won our confidence, Mr. Speaker. He won the confidence of the Kenyans at large that he is indeed the commander-in-chief, commander and in charge of the armed forces. Mr. Speaker, I really would like to congratulate our President having addressed this Parliament and Kenyans at large. Indeed, he spoke touching on various aspects, namely the economy. He mentioned about the economy, the double-digit growth of our economy, which everybody sees today in this country. He spoke about the roads network, the underpasses, the bypasses, and in fact, this road network, we have realized, we have seen, even deep into the rural areas, we have seen tarmac road. And indeed, Kenyans at large, we really would like to thank our President and his administration for achieving all this. Mr. Speaker, the President went ahead to address the issue of health. You can imagine, he said, we had only handful level 4, level 5 hospitals in this country. Even after they have actually introduced Nairobi Metropolitan, now the citizens of Kenya, those in the informal sector, Kibera, kwa Ruben Njenga, those people now appreciate to be called they are Kenyans. Because he mentioned that one place he visited during his, he paid an impromptu visit. He found there is only one clinic serving mothers who are going there for delivery. And imagine a mother will only spend, immediately they deliver, she is told, please quit, so that they can bring on board, or that another mother can be able to occupy that bed. However, with all these good things that his administration has done, actually is a legacy he's going to leave behind. People normally say that the previous president, His Excellency Kibaki, did a wonderful thing that many Kenyans thought or believed Kibaki will come back. In fact, it is Uhuru Kenyatta who has done much better than Kibaki. if we are supposed to rate presidents who happen to take office. However, Mr. Speaker, having listened to his speech, I found that the livestock industry was not sufficiently addressed, bearing in mind the ravaging drought that is affecting the pastoralist-dominated areas. Mr. Speaker, we have not been receiving rains, and if we did, those rains are very minimal. And actually, that rain had also come with a lot of consequences, that our livestock have died in numbers. So I want to appeal to our president and his government if they can be able to put some measures in place so that those affected families can be compensated in one way or another. Mr. Speaker, the menace of cattle rustling affecting pastoral communities, the tribal conflicts within our communities in Marsabit County has also not been addressed sufficiently. With those few remarks, Mr. Speaker, I wish and congratulate, and I pray for him to live long, and I also pray for him that this country, as we transition to another government, if we can be able to get a leader like Uhuru Kenyatta, our president. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Following the list again, the Honorable Odanga. Oh, leader minority. You are not contributed. Oh, yeah. If leader minority wants to contribute, of course, it takes precedence. But the Honorable Odanga being absent, now he loses. Maybe you could get this, but then let's get the Honorable John Bandi. It takes precedence. I'll still go to the list, but the leader minority as president, it's in the Constitution, you know it.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to contribute and register my thanks to the President's speech yesterday. Mr. Speaker, my starting point would be that we are all aware that this is a requirement of the Constitution. Article 132 of the Constitution is specific and requires the President to once every year report in an address to the nation on measures that have been taken and progress made in terms of achieving or realizing the provisions that are under Article 10 of the Constitution on the principles and values of governance. So, Mr. Speaker, we expected the President to fulfill as a bare minimum some elaboration or discussion through his speech on issues of devolution, what his government has done to ensure that devolution is implemented, issues of national unity, issues to do with the rule of law and our rights as citizens of this nation, and many, many more, Mr. Speaker. Besides that, the President is also supposed to submit to us on issues of security. How safe are we as a nation? So when we weigh the President's speech, we are supposed to look at the constitutional provisions and ask ourselves whether the President met the constitutional threshold of explaining to the nation the measures that have been taken and the realization or where we have reached with the fulfillment of these requirements. But, Mr. Speaker, the President, I think, also took his time to tell the nation that in the 8 years that he has been at the helm of the leadership of this country, 8 years plus, what is it that his government has been able to achieve? And I would say that President Uhuru Kenyatta has had two governments, one which I usually call Jubilee 1 and then Jubilee 2. But he elaborated what he has done since he assumed the office or took an oath to serve the people of Kenya as a president. Now, based on meeting the constitutional threshold, I would rate that the President did well in terms of talking about national unity. And I think that was his opening remarks. The President spoke so passionately about the need for this country to be together, that even though we compete and sometimes we disagree, but we must remember that Kenya is bigger than each one of us, individually and even collectively, that this country must be bequeathed to our future generation intact and leave it without destroying the social fabric of this nation. So I think the president was very clear on that. The president also talked passionately about devolution and even mentioned that his government has been able to give not just the 15%, which is the constitutional bare minimum that is provided for, but that the government has been giving 32%, although it is based on historical data, but I think that is a step in the right direction. But what I picked out is that the president was so passionate that we lost an opportunity to give more resources to the counties through a constitutional provision, something that would not be changed by any individual, whether you don't like devolution or not. If we embed it in the Constitution that the minimum is 35%, that 35% will have to go to the counties, whether we get someone who is against devolution as the president of the nation. And so I think this is clearly an opportunity that we lost as a nation. And those who have been telling us out there that we don't need constitutional amendment must reckon with the fact that if we made constitutional amendment, if we agreed to amend the Constitution to anchor the 35% in the Constitution, then it is the people of Kenya who would have benefited from additional resources that would go to the grassroots to spur economic growth. Because, Mr. Speaker, for this country to realize meaningful economic growth, that must come from engineering and spurring the rural economy. That is where there is potential. The biggest potential in terms of productivity in this country is in the rural areas. It is not in the usual traditional urban settings. The urban settings are overstretched, Mr. Speaker. That is why we have slums in our cities, a thing that we must discourage. So, Mr. Speaker, I agree with the president totally that we missed an opportunity to strengthen devolution in this country through constitutional amendments. Mr. Speaker, coming to what the president took a lot of time talking about in terms of his legacy, and we need to listen and agree and understand the president. I heard some of my colleagues say that the president dwelt a lot about what he has done, which is not the constitutional requirement. But we must understand that probably this is the last State of the Nation address that the President Uhuru Kenyatta will give to the people of Kenya. And therefore, it is in order and appropriate for him to also tell the country loudly, when the whole world is watching, that this is what I have done. And, Mr. Speaker, it cannot be denied that this government has performed well in terms of infrastructural development, in terms of putting together the basic fabrics of infrastructure, in terms of roads, even railways, port improvement, whether it is Lamu, Lake Victoria, Kisumu Port, or Lamu Port. I think we would be very mean to President Uhuru Kenyatta if we said he did little. He did a lot. The only thing that Kenyans have been talking about, and that is where I feel a little bit disappointed by the president's speech, that he should have also taken time to talk about the debt level in this country. Because we did all this infrastructural development, but at a cost. And this cost is not just to present generation, it is going to be for future generations. And we know this infrastructural development is likely to bring returns going forward. But we should have mentioned that. The president should have taken time to say, yes, we have incurred a lot of debt, we are heavily indebted as a country, we are struggling to pay, but based on economic projections, after 3, 4, 5 years, this country is going to stabilize. And we are likely to be able to now harvest returns on our investment. So the president missed an opportunity to speak to the people of Kenya who have been complaining about the high debt levels. He should have, with facts, with figures, presented to this House that even though we are struggling to pay our debts now, But based on the returns that we are likely to realize in the coming years, then we will be able to pay our debt. So I thought that is an opportunity that the president missed. Madam Mr. Speaker, I was very happy when the president himself, because we have been fed with a lot of propaganda, a lot of hearsay, a lot of misrepresentation, so to speak, of facts, that from 2018 to date, after the handshake, that this country has, that the attention of the government has shifted to what they call some animal called BBI. Personally, I have not seen that animal. What I saw is a well-crafted proposed bill, which was taken to Kenyans. I saw signatures in their millions. I didn't see animals. I saw this go to counties. The counties approved it. I didn't see animals. It was brought here in Parliament. We approved it with overwhelming majority. We were not animals, but they call it animal, that the attention has been shifted, and the country lost track. But what did the president say here? That for the first time in the history of this country, the second quarter of 2021, we registered the highest economic growth ever witnessed in this country, and comparable to none in the region, 10.1%. That is courtesy of handshake, courtesy of peace, courtesy of the calm political environment that we are seeing today, Mr. Speaker. Where do they get their records? These people who talk out there and start telling us that handshake disrupted government functions and programs. If programs, government functions and programs were not running, how can you achieve 10% economic growth, Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, let's face facts. With the COVID-19, Mr. Speaker, ravaging the whole world, where the world economy shrank, Mr. Speaker, for this country to have held its ground in terms of economic fundamentals, and even to now start realizing such accelerated economic growth, it is because of peace. Mr. Speaker, if we didn't have peace in this country, and then we added to COVID-19, we would have lost the economy of this country. And therefore, I want to speak to those naysayers, those prophets of doom, people who are interested in their selfish interest to acquire raw power. That please, don't discredit something that has brought peace and stability in this country. In fact, I was asking myself, if this President Uhuru Kenyatta, and by the way, Mr. Speaker, to be honest, if there is any president who has been very active in physically inspecting projects since I became an adult in this country, I think it is Uhuru Kenyatta. President Moi was very active, but for different reasons. President Moi was very active in playing politics, not supervising development. President Kibaki could not leave his office and State House. Probably did well because he delegated sufficiently well. But President Uhuru Kenyatta is always out there. You see him in Kawangware, you see him in Kibra, you see him in Lamu. He comes to Kisumu even without giving the local leadership notice. You see him in Naivasha, you see him in Limuru. He's a very active president. And I'm asking myself, if without cooperation from a deputy president, this president could do all this. Assuming his deputy cooperated and avoided politics for 4 years and did politics for only 6 months as he wanted, how much would we have achieved as a country? If we are able to achieve 10.1% with an absentee deputy president, now if we had an active deputy president, very cooperative, working with the president, how much would we have achieved? Probably 15%. And that takes me to this fundamental question, which we must talk about. For us to have stability in this country, there is need to ask ourselves, going forward, This, what we saw, this experiment we saw with the president and the deputy, is it what we want to see again in this country? If we are not going to amend our constitution, if we are not going to do it, then I think the presidential candidates need to think twice and get deputies, running mates, where they have a chemistry that is perfect, not a chemistry that is forced by circumstances. A chemistry that only suffices because there is some danger you see ahead. Get someone you can work with, someone you are sure will not undermine you, and someone you know you can easily delegate to without any fear or favor. Because I don't think Kenyans are interested anymore in seeing this kind of shenanigans that we saw in Jubilee 2, Mr. Speaker. And please don't blame handshake for it. The handshake came about because of one simple fact. And these two leaders decided to shake hands. And we thought both sides would rain on their lieutenants to follow. There are certain things that I didn't like. Mr. Speaker, you did not I'm sure you would not have contemplated in late 2017 that I would stand on the floor of this house and say that Uhuru is a good president. Even greeting him was a problem. But because my party leader told me, buddy, this is the direction to take, as a loyal servant, as a loyal lieutenant, I follow. If I don't want to follow, I announce it publicly that we have severed my relationship with my party leader. But if I still want to call him my party leader, call him my presidential candidate, call him my friend, then I have to find a way of working around him and what he believes in. So, Mr. Speaker, I know I wanted to really passionately talk about that matter because, honestly speaking, I'm sure there is no Kenyan who is enjoying the kind of scenario we have. I beg, Mr. Speaker, Intergovernmental Budget and Economic Council is a very important organ in governance of this country. And that is a body that decides and determines even the sharing of government revenue between national and county government. But you hear, people are now boycotting, people are not going to attend, people don't attend IBEC because they don't like the deputy president. Honestly speaking, if he's still the deputy president of this country, then you must attend his function, especially if it is IBEC and any other. But the deputy president must also demonstrate that he still wants to be the deputy president of a country by working closely with the president. If not, you just resign, my friend. For heaven's sake, Mr. Speaker. If I cannot perform my duties as MP for Suba South, there is no need of earning a salary like a ghost worker. Mr. Speaker, I'm sure even you, your conscience cannot allow you to earn a salary for the office of the Speaker and you feel you are not performing the functions of the Speaker. Your conscience, that the way I know you, your conscience would not allow you. And I'm like you. My conscience cannot allow me to earn a salary as minority leader in this house, and I feel I'm still not doing my functions as minority leader. We have had the worst government in Jubilee 2. Non-functioning, leaving one person to run things, and then they excuse it. My functions were taken and given to someone else. Who is that someone else who was given your functions, and given by who? If there's a president who has said it, you just say, no, I'm still going to continue doing my function. I don't think Raila Odinga would give my functions of minority leader here to any other member, even Lilian Gogo here. And then I claim I'm still minority leader, but Lilian Gogo is doing my function. Then why am I earning that salary? If he gives Lilian Gogo my functions as minority leader, what I would do next is to resign. So I don't earn that salary. But you cannot have your cake and eat it. You earn a salary, you live in a government's house, you hold functions, political functions in a government office, deputy president's office, and you are claiming that you are still the deputy president, but your functions have been taken. Contradiction. Finally, Mr. Speaker, let us be honest with ourselves. If you feel this government has not performed, and the president explained his achievements here, he even talked about the Big Four agenda. And I listened to him. He acknowledged that on housing, they have not done very well. But he said they have done very well in universal health care. They have made tremendous progress, a lot with the support of this House. And he also talked about the food security and where he thinks they have not achieved. Because not all objectives set will be met. But if you feel the president has not performed, say so and stick to that lane. You cannot say today you've done nothing, tomorrow, oh, this government has done very well, the following day, I am going to ride on our good achievements to win my next seat. How can I claim to have done very well in Suba South? Or that today I'm saying I have not done very well. Tomorrow I'm saying we have done so well that please now re-elect me. You are causing confusion. That is the basic word. Or you yourself, you are confused. Either you are confusing people or you are the one who is confused. So with those many, many remarks, Mr. Speaker, I want to end my statement by saying I thank the president, candid, honest, truthful, and he opened his heart and even expressed his frustrations to us, especially on BBI. BBI, we will revisit. Let us assume power next year. We will make sure BBI comes back because there are good provisions in that document which we cannot let go. How can some constituencies like Othaya die? We must make sure Othaya is protected even after next general election. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Following the same list, member for Madioya.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity also to add my voice. And on the onset, I would like to support and congratulate His Excellency the President for his State of the Nation address. And for me, Honorable Speaker, I would like to say that His Excellency the President did touch on a lot of issues that have been accomplished in this nation over the last 8 years of his administration. And I do not want to go over all of them, but Your Excellency, we know even how the speech was long because they were enormous. So many things have been able to be accomplished in this country. More so in the last 4 or 5 years, Your Excellency, Your Honorable Speaker. A few of them did come out to me in a very special way. We know that we've had a very difficult time. We've had 2 years where this country, we've had to struggle with the pandemic of COVID-19. And the handling of this by his administration, to me, really did stand out. Even in the most difficult times. The fact that we have been able to contain to a large extent the pandemic and also be able to ensure that our economy, and we are told in the third quarter of the economy was growing at more than 10%. That honestly is exemplary for me. And there are many sectors the president did say that have also, his administration has been able to see accomplishments like roads, in the infrastructure development, for instance, the roads, the ports. We now have a new port of Lamu that is operational. We have new berths that are also working efficiently in Mombasa. We have a railway network that has been expanded across the country. We have even in the other area of hospitals, for instance. The president did say how so many hospitals have been built in the last few years and equipped by his administration. Even the old hospitals, Honorable Speaker, we have seen a lot done in this sector. And perhaps that's why this country has been able to come out, even though we have not come out of the pandemic, we have largely been able to contain it. Honorable Speaker, there are many other issues like the green energy, that Kenya is now a leading country in Africa in the issue of green energy. And that, for me, is important, knowing that we have now been able to ensure that many people in our rural areas have been connected to electricity. and a lot still continues to be done. Honorable Speaker, even in the water sector, which is very, very important, we have seen a lot done across the country, and that was very welcome. Honorable Speaker, the other area for me that has stood out, you know, me, I come from an agricultural constituency of Mathioya, where tea and coffee are very paramount. And we have seen in the last few years, the price of tea and coffee has now started to go up. Reasons because of the structural changes that have been made, and to ensure that the farmer becomes very paramount, and to ensure that we can even be able to expand our buckets. And for this, we now see coffee almost at 100 shillings, and in some areas even more. Tea is already doing over 60% of what we were earning in the last few years, where it was declining. Honorable Speaker, the small and medium enterprises have also not been left out, and the injection of 5 billion as a seed capital for the SME credit guarantee schemes was also quite touching, because this is monies that now can be accessed by small SMEs, particularly those that are started by our youths. Honorable Speaker, we need to have this matter pronounced so that it can reach our youths in the rural area in a better way. Honorable Speaker, we did also see the president did say that his government and administration is enforcing the Buy Kenya, Build Kenya. We have seen even a number of factories that were almost dead now being uplifted, so that they are now becoming very important sectors of our growth, like Kenya Meat Commission.